Hello and welcome to the Science Maker Lab introduction to using Premiere Pro to edit raw video into completed movies. I'm Juliet and I'll be leading you through this lesson along with my colleagues,
Nick,
James,
and Matea.
In today's lesson, we're going to be looking at the basics of using Premiere Pro. To get started here, let's open up a session in Premiere Pro. We want to start a new project. As it opens, it's going to ask us for a file name and a folder location. We set the file name in the text box of the new project pop-up, and we use the Browse button below and to the right of that box to set the folders we're going to save this project. It makes life a lot simpler if you store all of your raw video, audio, and other media files in the same folder as the project.
note that once you've added a media element to the timeline, Premiere Pro won't be able to find it or rename it if you move it to a different folder. So it's best to move all the files to where you want them before you start adding them to your timeline.
When we press OK, a new session opens up and we're presented with a screen divided up into 4 main windows. The window in the upper right corner is where the video is going to be previewed once we add some content. The window in the upper left corner here can flip between a few sections, depending on which tab is selected. We will use it primarily for editing. There are a lot of controls that will appear here when we've added some content, and we'll go through how to adjust the keys later on in the lesson. In the lower left corner, there is a quick grab menu for the media that's already available to use in the video. We can see there's already some stuff there. We can add media to our project and then drag it from here to the timeline, or we can drag it directly into the timeline and it will be added to this window. When we create frame grabs, those will also be displayed in and available from this window. The last window here on the lower right is our timeline. This is where we lay out when media will be played in our movie and which one takes priority over the others.
to start building a movie, we have to add media to our timeline. There are 2 ways we can add something into our video timeline. We can drag it from our window at the lower right, so we can just take it and drag and drop it into our timeline window. We'll want to drop it into our first video channel. All the videos, graphics, or photos go into the video channels. You can see that we have channel 1, channel 2, channel 3 by default. If we need more channels, we just right-click on one of the headers at the left end of the video channel and we can add a track. The same process is used to delete a track. You can see that whenever we're making a training video, we always start and end our video with slides of the Laurier logo and the Science Maker Lab logo. Now we have some media in the timeline. We can drag the cursor left to right, and you can see that the time counter in the lower left corner of the preview window changes, and that whatever media the cursor cuts through on our timeline will be displayed. 10 seconds is a bit long for this section, so we'll change these graphics to a duration of 3 seconds each. We'll right-click on the pink graphic block in the timeline, and we'll get a pop-up. About 2/3 of the way down, there's an option called Speed Duration. Click on it to open a second little pop-up window. We'll get another pop-up and it says 00:04:29. This is a time signature, but it's a little odd. From left to right, it reads hours, minutes, and seconds. But then the last section on the right is actually frames. Because the video we are going to use consists of 3 frames per second, 1 frame is 1/30th of a second. We'll change this duration to 0.3 seconds, 00 frames. If we wanted 3.5 seconds, we'd set the time to 00:00:03:15. We'll set the other one to a duration of 3 seconds too, giving us an opening slideshow sequence of 6 seconds total. Okay, so now to add more media to this, we can grab it and bring it into this little part over here, but that's kind of the hard way. Let's just open File Explorer and we'll drag a video file from our folder and drop it into our timeline. Once in a while, it will drop out without the audio. We're still trying to figure out why it does this. Usually saving, exiting Premiere Pro, and re-entering solves this problem.
So, we'll bring this over and then we've got sound and video. This top line is video and lower line is audio. If we move the top one up a layer, the file and audio one stays where it is. Or I can move audio down a couple of layers, but they stay locked together if we move either one side to side. But say we don't want that audio. If we right-click on the blue audio in your timeline, we'll get that toggle drop down again, and you can select Unlink. If we activate the unlink function by clicking on it, then we have the ability to edit the audio and video separately and to move them to different points in the timeline. We can also delete one without affecting the other if we want. Often, when we create videos by screen capturing, we will delete the sound to put in our own sound in its place. That sound file can be placed on any of these tracks that we want. Unlike the video, where there is a priority to layers, higher numbered audio layers don't block out lower numbered layers. They can all be heard. The order of priority on the video tracks is 4, 3, 2, 1. So, if we were to now go and say, take another copy of the Science Maker Lab logo, and we drop it up above the V1 layer, so on 2, 3, or 4, it doesn't matter which one, we're going to get the same effect. It's going to be superimposed on top of the existing video or graphics on layer 1, hence the name layers. It works exactly like sliding a sheet of paper on top of another sheet of paper. We'll get our razor blade trim tool from the tool menu at the left of our timeline and trim the time where nothing is happening from the beginning of our video. We do this by clicking where we want the segment cut and then switching back to the arrowhead select tool, selecting the severed segment we want to delete and then pressing the delete key. Okay, so we'll drag the trimmed segment to the left until it snaps to our opening screens back here. Notice the little white triangles that indicate the segments had snapped together. Now our blue video segment moves as soon as we start playing it. Sound and video work fine, but the picture is a bit smaller than the frame. You can see the black border around the outside. We want our frame to be filled with video. If we select the clip and the Effects Control tab is active in the upper left window, we can see a bunch of the properties with blue numbers beside them. We can edit the blue numbers by double-clicking on them. Let's experiment a bit to see how they work. We can see the position has values of 960 and 540. If we change the 960 to 1000, our frame moves to the right, so the left number controls the horizontal position and a higher is further right. We'll put that back and change the 540 to 600. Our frame moves down, so the right position number controls the vertical position and higher is lower. We'll put that back to 540. The next control down is scale. It's expressed as a percentage of the original frame size. We'll experiment with a few values until it just fills up our preview screen. Looks like 112 fits the screen pretty much perfectly.
So now we'll bring our Science Maker Lab still shot back in. You can see it superimposes itself and hides all the video on layer 1. We'll select it, and the effect controls will flip over to the ones for this graphic. So let's adjust it to 25% size. This will give us a small superimposed image in the middle of the preview screen. We don't want it in that position, so we'll adjust the horizontal and vertical position until our picture-in-picture is down in the lower right corner. Note that it usually takes a few tries to get positioning that we like. Picture-in-picture is closely related to split screen, so we'll do a split screen while we're at it, keeping just the middle part of the Science Maker Lab graphic. Let's reset the position and size of layer 4 graphic. To get started, let's open Effects, then Video Effects, and we're looking for the Crop tool. It's hidden away under the subheading Transform. Similar to Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator, Transform accesses the tools to move, rotate, or resize an image element. Now that we've found Crop, we'll drag it over to our timeline and drop it to the clip we want to crop. We'll see that a crop control will open up in the editing window for that clip, and we'll have several adjustable values. We'll start by cropping from the left by, say, 25%, maybe 24 or 23. So, okay, we'll crop 23 from the right as well. Now we'll adjust the horizontal position until our square logo lines up with the right edge of our preview window. This is a little wider than we were looking for, but we can crop it without cutting into the letters. So we'll open up a scale, uncheck Uniform Scale, and take the width down to 90 while leaving the height alone. So now we got the screen split about 50-50, but the POV camera view from the motorcycle is way off to the right. So we'll repeat the crop and move process for the video on layer 1, moving it over the left edge of the view. Okay, we've got a left screen, a right screen, and a little black line in between. So now we have a split screen. When we play it, both of those will play as normal. If we'd use 2 videos instead of a graphic, we would see and hear both videos moving. This technique is called picture-in-picture. Okay, so we'll undo the picture-in-picture to get back to a single full screen video.
Another common element that we need to add to our videos is an overlaid comment. To put in an overlaid comment, we can click on the T in our timeline tools, and we draw a box where we want the text to be. This works exactly like a text box in any other application, but in Premiere Pro, it defaults to have a transparent background, no outline, and a duration of 5 seconds. We can see that it is placed on a layer above the video layer in the timeline. We'll put in some text. If we want to change that size, font, or color of the text, we highlight it and drop down the text tool in our editing window. This will open up a drop down to change font, a slider blue number to change the font size, layout tools that work exactly like Word, and appearance submenu. In this submenu, font controls the color of the lettering. Any changes we make in these controls will be applied only to the letters that we've highlighted in our preview window. The positioning and size controls work as they normally do and can be used to reposition and/or scale the text box.
When we play this section, the lettering pops up on screen very suddenly. It might be nicer if it faded in. To fix this, we'll open up our effects menu and select Video Transition. And I'm going to get a video effect, and then this time, no, instead of a transform, I'm going to get a video transition. A video transition is a way of blending one video or still clip into the next one, instead of just suddenly cutting from one to the other. There are a lot of different ones available depending on what movie style you're looking for. We'll drag an iris box onto the beginning of our text overlay and play it. We can see that it defaults to a 1 second duration. That can be adjusted by dragging or right-clicking and typing in a value. The lettering appeared starting in the middle of the frame and working its way outwards. We'll add a page peel transition to the end and see what this looks like. Transitions can be placed on the beginning or end of a segment, or they can straddle 2 segments. The most common one is to use the dissolve types, as they are a simple fade. The most conservative from a style point of view.
Okay, so say we wanted to have some fun at the expense of our motorcycling friends and make it look like we're actually a faster rider than we are. In summer 2020, virtual races were the only kind available, so virtually cheating by speeding up the video a bit would be a fun prank to play. So, first off, we'll just use our razor trim tool to shorten the segment to a length that's easier to work with. About 5 minutes will do fine. Now that we're working with times, let's explore a bit how we manipulate the time tools. Along the bottom, we can drag the slider bar back and forth by clicking in the middle of it and dragging it with our mouse. That will move our timeline view window back and forth through our movie. To see more of the movie at once, we can stretch the timeline slider by grabbing one end with our mouse. To examine a short period of time in more detail, we can drag the slider bar end to make it smaller, zooming in the time graph in our timeline window. The blue cursor with the vertical line below it determines what time within the movie will be displayed in the preview window.
On second thought, let's trim this movie to about 2 minutes. Okay, then let's adjust our timeline slider so that this segment pretty much fills our timeline window. Now to speed it up or slow it down is really easy. In our timeline tools, third from the top is the ripple editing tool, and when it is active, If we click at the end of a segment and drag it into the segment, everything outside of our stopping point will be trimmed off. But if we use the drop-down beside this tool and activate the Rate Sketch tool instead, when we drag one end of the segment back and forth, the segment will be stretched and the video will slow down or speed up to fit the new time we've allotted for. This can also be done manually with a right click and an adjustment to the speed, but this way is much easier. So we'll drag the segment down to about half the length and then give the software a moment to work. Now suddenly our writer is about twice as fast and the pitch of the engine is much higher. When not using it to torture friends, this feature comes in really handy to making instructional videos where we've recorded the audio separately from the video and need to match up certain events to certain words. We'll put that back to normal speed by dragging it back the other way.
Another tool we'll use a lot to make videos is Graphic. There are some pre-made graphics available that can come in handy for titles, and some even have animation built into them. We can access them by clicking on Graphics at the very top and then making sure that the Browse tab is open. We'll scroll down to find one we like. To use them, we drag one onto our timeline. Then we double-click within it and drag across the words we want to edit. We can then edit the words and font just like we did earlier for our text overlay. If we play it, we can see the animation in action. The duration can be adjusted by dragging or the right-click method. The speed of the animation will stay the same unless you use the Rate Stretch tool to adjust the duration.
Sometimes in a movie, we'll want to include a still photo. So, we'll go into Explorer and drag one into the timeline on one of our upper video layers. Here's one of our former lab assistant Calandra holding up her degree. While we're at it, we'll click on the little shield-shaped icon in our preview window to add a marker to this point in the timeline so we can find it again easily. Okay, so Calandra doesn't fit the screen there. We're going to go or click on the pink graphic on V3 in our timeline and we'll make it active. We'll open up our editing window. We'll try 200% size. That's not quite enough. So 210, 220? 220 fits. But now we can't see her face. So we'll adjust the vertical until her face is centered. 1400. Too much. 1300. And there we go. So now Calandra fits the whole screen. That's how we make a photograph fit the screen. It's not really cropped, it's just hanging out in space down below our preview. But for our purposes, it gets cropped by the size of the screen. So we won't need to separately crop it unless we're trying to save unnecessary processor time. We can delete this photo.
We'll have a quick look how to layer some audio into your movie from other sources. The first one that we'll cover is voiceover. This is a really common technique for news reporters to use. With a suitable microphone set up and ready to go, choose an empty audio track and figure out where in the timeline you want to record your voiceover. Set the timeline cursor to about 3 seconds before that point. When you're ready, click the microphone icon in your chosen audio track. The video will start playing and a 3, 2, 1 countdown will appear.
When it hits 0, you're recording on the chosen audio track.
The other way to add more audio to your movie is to drag in an audio file from a folder and drop it onto an empty audio track. You can bring in spoken word, music, or sounds in this way. The volume of any audio track can be adjusted near the bottom of the editing window, as can the channel volume. Channel volume adjustments are useful for putting the sound on the same side as the picture in a split screen.
Okay, we've covered most of the things we need to do in the timeline, so let's have a quick look at the preview window. At the lower left of the video, our timer reads 55 seconds and 5 frames. Over on the right is a drop down that tells us the fraction of actual resolution that we're previewing in. Like in CAD, lower resolution runs faster. Unlike CAD, this setting doesn't affect the output quality. The controls underneath the timeline in this window, from left to right, are Insert Marker, Mark In, Mark Out, Go to In Marker, Step Back 1 frame, Play Pause, Step Forward 1 frame, Go to Out Marker, lift, extract, export frame, and comparison view. When you export a frame, a window will pop up where you can click in the top text box to name your file, and then the Browse button to determine what folder it's sent to. It will also show up in the window at the lower left corner of your screen. We'll save our work.
The final step is to export the file into a movie format that other players can use. We don't necessarily have to export the whole movie. We can set a mark in and mark out range and then select sequence in out in our source range option in the export pop-up. We'll do that here, but we'll bracket the whole movie. We'll add a mark out at the end, then go back to the beginning and add a mark in. You can see that the range between them turns gray. Using this method, if we moved a clip fragment way off to the right to get it out of the way during editing, and then forgot about it, it won't wind up back in our movie. Now we select File, Export, Media. We get an Export Settings pop-up box. In this box, at the upper right, we usually uncheck Match Sequence Settings and set the format to H.264. This will give us an MP4 output file and 1080p resolution. It will work well and look good on a variety of playback engines, including YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and iPhones. To name the file, we double-click on the blue output name and edit both the file name and the folder location.
Down at the bottom of the left window in this pop-up, there is a drop-down called Source Range. Because we specified an in-out range, we'll set it to Sequence in-out. We're now ready to create our MP4 movie by clicking on the Export button. This process takes some time, so don't get worried if the computer is working for a while. Just let it do its thing. While it will vary with the power of your computer and the resolution of the video, typically the export time ranges from about 1/4 the length of the video to the same as the length of your entire video.
So that is the very basics of using Premiere Pro. If you use the techniques you learned here, you can take your raw video files and audio or music files from your computer folders, combine them into a movie that looks polished and looks, sounds, and feels like you want it to, not like it was cut and pasted in some app.
You can watch our audio recording tips inside the Black Box videos to get great quality spoken word audio to add to your movies.
That's it for now.
Enjoy making movies, and we'll see you in the next instructional video.
Thanks for watching.